All right, I was informed by the powers that be that I didn't explain what I just did on that joiner real well. So I'm going to explain it again. Here we go. The reason I bumped it this way first is because the rotation of the knives is going to cause it to cut into the wood, which will not give me a chip out. Because cutting into it, it's when those knives rotating in this direction, clockwise, when they come past this point, they want to grab this edge and chip it out. By nipping this end first, then running it, this end is already cut. So when I pass over the knives, I'm not going to catch this edge. That's why I did that. Okay? I got my drawer bottom in. Screwed down my runners, and I got a nice fitting drawer. Nice. Now, one of the things I want you to look right here on the uppercase shelf, on the upper shelf rather, I actually put another cleat. And the way I did that to determine the depth on that is I just came in and I measured from the bottom where the shelf's going to be to my drawer, made sure this was just a little less. And all this is a tilt cleat. And what this does is this prevents the drawer, when you pull it out, this is going to prevent this drawer from tilting a lot. And it's going to allow the drawer a means to stop. It's going to hold it. Now when I sand and tweak all this up, this drawer will run even a little smoother. Now, see what I mean? I get a little, but not much. Very, very little. See? And if I'm getting more than I want, the only thing I have to do is increase the depth of my, see? There we go. So now we have a drawer. Now we got to get the front on. We're going to get another camera angle, and we're going to cut this front and get it ready to go. All right, what I'm doing now is I've got my combination squared. I'm going around here and I'm marking 1/4 of an inch beyond my drawer opening. You're not going to be able to see this on camera because I'm using this pencil. But guys, I really don't want to use a magic marker on this. Magic markers on the outside of a case that's getting almost ready to be finished isn't a good idea. But I think you can handle it. Just 1/4 inch, I'm just marking the corners, that's all I need. Now I've got my drawer front. So I need to get it sized. All right, looks like we're going to be 16 to 9/16. And we're going to be 4 1/4 what we're supposed to be. Okay. Now I've already squared this, I've just cut it a little bit to get parallel sides here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it the length. Y'all remember last time I went ahead and did my trace and made sure I knew what was up and what was down and all that good stuff to take care of the chatoyance thing. things I like to do is I like to cross cut these first. And I'm going to leave it wide. And in a minute you're going to see why. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to resaw this, but since I've got a thick piece of wood here and I only need one piece for the drawer front, what I could do would be to cut this to size, then using, because I'm gonna put a little bead around it, just a round over, and I could round it over. But sometimes, if you're trying to get 2 or 3 pieces out of something, your drawer fronts can get a little bit thin. I like for them to be about 5/16. You know, the big, thick, heavy drawer fronts, that's a modern day thing. I don't care for them. I think they look clunky. I really do. Now, a lot of you guys out there don't have big bandsaws to resaw. So I'm going to show you a neat way of doing it. I'm going to use a combination of my table saw and my bandsaw. Now, one of the things I'm going to tell you this again. When we open this up, odds are it's going on a cup or something. So to try to saw this to 5/16 and be able to have a finished piece is going to be difficult. So even though we're going to be gluing it, clamping it to the front of that drawer, which would bring it right back to flat, it's easier if we can start with something flat. So what we're going to do is we're going to sneak up on resawing it. So I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to start at 5/16. Excuse me, a little over 3/8, I'm sorry. 7/16 is where I'm at. Now I want you to notice something. I wrote about this in my newsletter. You can buy these, remember, I forget what we were doing in this project, but on my saw stop, my riving knife comes up over top of my blade. So I can't really resaw on it unless I have it removed. And then I have a chance of a pinch. I like this idea. Number one, they're not real expensive. You make the plate. Number two is, I think this makes sense if you're going to use a table saw for resawing. Now, the other thing they make, they also got this little, I don't know if you can see this, it's kind of light blue, and what is it? This is, same people make this, make the gripper, and this is a curve keeper. What it does, if you cut something and it pinches really tight, what this piece will do is it's made to actually break off and grab in the kerf and carry with it so that it can't pinch on you and kick back on you. Pretty neat idea. I'm just showing it to you. Ain't trying to say you nothing. Here we go. Now I'm going to sneak up on this. Now you want a good push stick. Now, this is doing pretty good, and you can tell by how even the kerf is remaining. I could keep going with this, but here's where I want to be very careful. If I keep going, as I pass over this, as this comes loose, I want to be careful that I don't pinch this piece of wood, particularly the outside. I don't want to pinch them onto the table saw, because then it could try to push back. But I'm in a position now that even a modest bandsaw with a decent blade will quickly make quick work of it. Let's go over here. Now this is a 14-inch bandsaw, but I'm not cutting with a riser. I've got a 1/4-inch blade on it, but I've got an aggressive 1/4-inch blade. Somebody's going to ask me what kind of blades I buy. I ain't giving Woodcraft a plug. I buy the cheapest Woodcraft blades, and I think these are what, a 3 or 4 tooth per inch, and I just run them. They get dull, I throw them away. They break, I pull them away. But here's the neat thing about having this kerf. Now you can do all kind of setup if you want, but you don't need to. Now I could pose this as a test, see if you guys are paying attention. If I was getting check it out, if I was getting 2 drawers out of this, is this the way I would do it? Y'all better be screaming no. How would I do it? Like that. Don't do this. Because if you flip, then your figure flops. Remember that. If you flip it, the figure flops. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to run to the back, and I'm going to scoot this through the planer and get it cleaned up. And I'm going to come back, and we're going to cut a little edge profile real quick. Be right back. Okay. I'm at my router table. Now I've got my front and I'm marked. But again, remember guys, I'm wider. The reason for it is in this tiger maple, when I route this end grain, if I'm going to get a chip out, odds are it's going to be at the end of one of these. And so I'm going to do the ends first. Then trim it to width and do that. Let's watch. Now, this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. Because I'm 5/16, and the wider I am on these ends, the easier it is for me to route them. Now, like I said, you can do it in a handheld router. But you're going to find yourself, I'll tell you what, I find myself sometimes on some of these little pigeonhole doors and real small drawers, I want a nice thin drawer front. It's very difficult to route a profile on something very thin. Because what can happen to you is you wind up not having a bearing surface. In other words, your drawer front isn't much taller than what you've got in bit, your bit cutting surface. Now what I'm using here is a 3/16 radius. Sometimes on really small ones I'll use an 1/8 or a 5/32. But this is a 3/16. Let me show you what I do. Now, I want to show you this very quickly. You see where the bit is? You can barely see it. All I do is I take a Forstner bit, this is just a piece of MDF, and I drill a hole just enough I can get my bit up through to give me as much bearing surface right here as I can get. I want, if this thing was 1.5 inches wide, can you imagine? You know, and what will happen is you go through here, what it's going to do is it's going to try to twist on you a little bit. And if it does, it's going to mess up your end. You don't want that. Somebody got glue in my slot. A couple of you guys emailed me when we did the dovetail thing last week and said you don't have a miter gauge or a miter slot on your router table. Let me tell you something. This router table, I showed it to you a little bit. This is just old hollow core door. You could take a piece of, take and screw two pieces of particle board together. And particle board's probably better than plywood because plywood is just, or two pieces of MDF, something that's pretty stable. And make your little router table that your router go under. And all this is, all I did right here on this one was I took a router bit. I took a 3/4 router bit, flush trim, brought this fence over, set it up, and ran it. Made me a track. Nothing fancy here. Having a little router table set up that you got a miter slide in really works nice. When we get to doing the, so something you probably really want to think about. When we get to doing our doors, we're going to really need it. All right, I've already set my depth. But I ain't got no power. Ah, damn. You got some editing to do, kid. All right, I got my depth set and I'm ready. Now you see what I'm creating here? You also notice I got a little teeny chip here. Now I could have put a backer behind that. But you also, I don't know if you can see it on camera, there's a little teeny little edge here. And that's because I'm just barely catching that bearing just on the edge. If I would have gone any more, I wouldn't be catching the bearing at all. I'd be totally reliant upon this fence. And that's okay. Yep. Can you get that? See, I'm not, that little edge is being caused by the little teeny washer that's under that. So I'm not even engaging the bearing at all. See it? Can you get under that, Crystal? All right. So without this fence, we'd be digging into everything. That little line will sand right out. All right, we're good on 3 sides. Now I'm going to take a measurement real quick. What did we say it was? We said it was 4 1/4. one drawer front. Now, what I want to do now is I want to figure out where I'm going to put my hardware. Okay, so we'll come back and I'll do that. All right, I got my hardware. Found me a center line. I'm just going to draw my center point. Now what we're going to be using is a bright brass bail and pull from Horton Brass. And I'm pretty sure this is a 3-inch center. Yep. You can see what that's going to look like. Isn't that nice? Now I want to explain something to you. Normally most people, or a lot of people, will actually, and this is an optional thing, they will locate the holes for the rosette dead center of the piece. I want you to rethink that a little bit. So let me go, I'm on a 3-inch bore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 1.5 inches on either side. Draw me a line. Now you're wondering, why is he doing the hardware now? I'm going to show you. Okay. So don't y'all tell the guys at Horton. If you happen to get this a little wide, because it's solid brass, you can grab it in here and give it a little pull. If you get a little too tight, you can simply take a mallet and turn it on the end, just tap it a little bit. You can open and close them wings. Now I'm just going to make sure that when I get on here, I'm going to be good. I am. I'm just looking here to make sure that if I drill this in that center, I'm going to be all right. And all I'm doing is setting my post on here, bringing them up to the edge and making sure that when I center one post, I'm centered on the other at my post. See what I'm showing you? Just to be sure. Okay, like I said, I want you to rethink about going center. Let me show you something. If I place my rosettes dead center in this, it'll be hard for me to show you. But I'm going to try. And I put my handle on here. Do you see how far the handle falls down to the bottom and how much space is up top? Maybe you want to consider moving your hardware up. Trying to balance out. And let me show you this now, what I'm going to do. How I want to balance this. I want to balance the space. Top of my rosette to the edge, bottom of my pull to my edge. See what I'm doing? That looks pretty close. I'm at 1 inch. And 1 inch. I'm good. Okay, so this is my center point. Did you get that? I want to make sure you did. Because what that's going to do when this now this is all personal choice. When this hangs, it gives a more centered look. Because, it's a visual, even though this area and this area, when they're the same, it gives you the look of that pole being centered. I'm at 1 5/8 inches. That's where I'm going to drill for my hardware. Why did I need to know that? Because when I go to position this piece of wood onto that drawer front, I want somewhere if I put a little nail in there to help me keep anything from scooting around. I'm not going to have any. Make sense now? Y'all thinking about it? Now before I do this, I'm going to go get my little brad nailer. Oh, I'm going to hear about that, ain't I? Charles Neal uses a brad nailer. Not very often. And I'll tell you what else. If you don't have a brad nailer, don't get excited. I'll tell you what you can do. You can go in here and you can, if you got a little short finishing nail, drill your little teeny hole, top, bottom, just enough the nail will stick in. So when you get it up on the case, you can take a hammer and tap them in. And that's going to keep this drawer from moving around because we're going to have glue on the back of that drawer and it's going to try to scoot you around. And you can either do that and just drive the nail on in, set it and fill it even though it's going to be covered, or you can drill right at your point where you're going to be drilling for your hardware with a larger nail, put it in, and just drive it enough to keep the thing from moving. Then after the glue's dry and whatever, just pull them out. So don't complicate it. All right. Time to glue this bad boy. And the first thing you're going to notice, I got some masking tape around my drawer to try to be as neat as possible. But I'm going to tell you, I don't do that real well. I've tried. Especially with glue. All right. What I do is I get the face of this thing and coat it real well. Particularly the end grain. Because I don't want to put glue on the back of my drawer front, because then the part of it, the overlay part, it'd all be coated in glue and that'd be a mess. So I want to make sure I've got a good, I've got a good wet coat of glue on here. Now I just got this little roller, but I tell you what something does good on these is just one of the little paint rollers. You just want a good heavy wet coat because we're not putting glue on the other surface. Now I'm going to go in here just enough to get it in. And I have my brad nailer. And I'm going to line this thing up just like I want. See, the neat thing about this is even if my drawer's, how shall we say, less than perfect, still going to fit. All right, now I'm going to come in from behind and just kind of pull that up nice and tight. Hey, you know what I did? I messed up, guys. This is supposed to be up here. Crystal's back there saying, I told you so. Nah, we'll wing it. I can eyeball it. I just did that to show y'all not to do that. All right, see, I'm in place, double checking everything. What would I do if somewhat, well, the nails still give me a little flex room or something if I needed it. I don't, but I'm okay. All right, we're stuck, we're in place. Now, don't go horsing this around a lot. Let's get some clamps on it. I've got it right side up. No, I had the front upside down. I'm right. Don't do that to me. I drew, when I laid it down, see my chalk line drawing up? This is the top of my drawer. I drew my rosettes from this direction instead of that direction. It's just the way I drew the rosette. No. No. I got it right, despite myself. Now guys, if you got clamps, use them. Make sure you're down on there good and tight. These just happen to be here. Now you notice I'm putting a little caul up here on top, just something to keep from imprinting the wood with a clamp. You know, I know somebody out there, I know a lot of you are thinking, you know, that's a lot of work. Why not just do a half blind? Well, you can. But again, my reason for doing this, and in this corner cabinet, we could have done a half blind because we only had the one drawer front. But there's something I want to mention. You notice the inside front here is tiger maple. So when I die this, that's going to look just like this piece. And by that, what I'm talking about is if I do one, and let's say I'm doing walnut. My inside front, it's also walnut. Cherry would be cherry. That way, when whatever species I'm putting on, I want the drawer front, the inner drawer front to match. That's what's going to make it appear like a half blind, and a really nice one at that. Now, if you got some nice big clamps, right here is a good place to put them, because I like these. Make sure your ends are really down good. Make sure the whole thing is, but you don't want any gaps in there. Now, you know, I know time flies when you're having fun because our time is about up. And I realize we spent an entire webisode on nothing but this drawer. But in our future webisodes, we're going to be doing a lot of drawers. And you'll really see the value of where this comes in. Again, if you're proficient enough to do half blind dovetails and have all your drawers fit flawlessly, that's great. If you're not, or if you're trying to stretch a nice piece of high-figured wood and get as many drawer fronts out of it as you can, this technique works really, really nice. And again, the biggest thing is it gives you an out. No matter what you do, if you know, in this case, had we messed up that drawer to where it was not usable, we wouldn't be happy, but we would not have lost our premier surface. We wouldn't have lost that drawer front. And while even so in this case that wouldn't be disastrous because we've got more material. But again, I go back, if we were doing a set of book match walnut, we don't have anything extra to rely on. So we want to make sure we get it right before we put our premier face on. And this does, it gives you, you can make a lot of mistakes in building a drawer and using this technique and still come out fine. And plus, again, the wood stretching thing, it just makes a lot of sense. Okay, guys, next time, doors. Time to get this thing finished.